Man, Patrick Mahomes is right, okay? And that O-line, anchored by left tackle Orlando Brown Jr., dominant offensive line, a big part of the Super Bowl run, as they posted the best pass block win rate by any team in a season since ESPN introduced that metric in 2017. But it wasn't just this season that Brown was dominant. Look at that right there. He's one of only 4 offensive linemen to be selected to the Pro Bowl in each of the last 4 seasons, and Brown is the only offensive tackle on that list. Impressive stuff as we now welcome in Orlando Brown Jr. So glad to have you here. We gave you
glad
the
to
whole...
have you here, man, because they moved me out my seat. It's a big day. It's a big day. Good to have you.
know,
now you get to feel what it feels like to be Stephen A.
I know, right?
Yeah.
When we
Musical chairs. We're going to move you to Dan's seat next. Watch out. All right, so you're currently a free agent.
Yes,
We'll start here. What's the latest on where your current contracts talks stand?
Yeah, no, I don't want to get too specific, but everything's going pretty well. Obviously, it's kind of a weird and a long process, different, something I've never experienced before. But it's going pretty well.
Good.
Yep.
It's a result of, it speaks to what you've put on tape, right? And we say this all the time. What you put on tape is your resume, but it's also your leverage and your negotiating power. And you understand that. Every player in the NFL should understand that. I wanted to ask you this, because I wanted to talk to one of you guys during the season.
Mm-hmm.
When Patrick suffered that high ankle, what was the heightened sense of protection level? Because y'all were phenomenal. People talk about the surface in the Super Bowl, but he played with a high ankle sprain in the Cincinnati game where he had. What was the conversation between you 5 guys up front about Patrick and that high ankle sprain?
No, man, it was just kind of understood. We had to raise our expectation. And we already have high expectation and standards in that room. And Coach Heck, the offensive line coach, does an amazing job week to week making sure that that's understood.
I got 1,000 questions I want to ask, but you grew up in the Baltimore offense.
Yes.
Early on in your career, run-centric.
Yep.
You go to Kansas City, pass-centric.
Yep.
Is there one that you prefer more now that you're in kind of like heading into the prime of your career?
Yeah.
Offensive style-wise, is there one that you prefer more?
Man, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. Personally, I think the reason I've been able to make the last 4 Pro Bowls is because my peers understand the type of player I am and talent. And I believe that being in Kansas City was a lot more difficult and a lot more harder because of the one-on-ones. But that's what makes people respect me. That's what makes coaches, front offices, players is, when you line up against Orlando Brown, you're going to see him 45 times one-on-one.
So you're saying all the one-on-one pass pro situations you got put into was different than Baltimore?
Yeah. Absolutely, big time. And I love it, man. I accept the challenge.
Makes sense.
Yep.
You also capped off this season with a Super Bowl against a really talented defensive front. How are you guys able to neutralize that Eagles D-line that, frankly, we all talked a lot about, right?
I mean, they're truly the best this year. Best defensive front we've seen, top to bottom. I mean, the depth that they had, their scheme, the way that they created one-on-ones with their 5-man fronts. I can't say the DBs that they had as well helped. I mean, and everything kind of worked hand in hand for them. But we raised our level of play, like I was just saying. It's just kind of understood. It's the Super Bowl, and previously this franchise had been in, the Super Bowl before, and there was noise around the offensive line, and some of those dudes were still in that room, and one of them was on that field that day and had a heck of a game. So,
Ooh, I know. We could tell. Y'all were a little mad about that. It's good. All right, so since we have you here, we wanted to get your opinion on some of the other big stories going on around the league. It's a huge week in the league. And let's start with Aaron Rodgers. He went on the Pat McAfee show earlier today, announced he intends to play for the Jets next season. One of the things that Marcus brought up yesterday about Aaron Rodgers and sort of putting out the players that he'd like to play with and some of those things is player empowerment, right? And players taking control. What's your reaction along those lines to what Aaron Rodgers is saying and doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly interesting, especially in football, because as someone that went through a trade myself, that, tweeted out I'm a left tackle and, all of those things kind of worked out together. I kind of understand what you're saying. Friends of friends being able to go on their shows and things like that. I don't think it's anything wrong with it. I think that's a trajectory and the way that the NFL needs to move for things to be proper.
It's really well said. Another big story around the league right now, Lamar Jackson and his contract situation. Yep. You played with Lamar in Baltimore before moving to the Chiefs. What do you think of the way that he's gone about his contract talks and the way that everything's been going for him?
Yeah, it's interesting, and honestly, it's a little touchy, just because he's a close friend. But man, I want everything to work out really well for him, and I understand why he wants a fully guaranteed contract. I understand, why he deserves that as well. And I think, too often in the sport, when we're dealing with quarterback numbers, I mean, they're so large that, You know, it's a lot of, I don't want to say familiarity, but it's different. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
approach.
yeah, exactly. And so it gets a little scary, it gets a little tricky. Owners and all these different things, other things get accounted for. It gets overthought. But at the end of the day, Aid is going to put his jersey on and cleats on and be one of the best players on the field every single time he touches the field.
If you follow Orlando on social media, and by the way, if you're not following him, you're missing out, so give him a follow. You know he likes to interview his teammates.
Yes, I do. Yes,
covering
I do.
a wide range of topics.
How many chickens would kill an elephant?
Hey, yeah.
5,000 and 10,000 was
Dan
the correct
eats so
answer.
many chickens, he can't even answer that question. It got us thinking, though, about this question from your former teammate Marlon Humphrey. He asked, does anyone really like towels?
This guy.
Which is an odd question anyway, but of course Dan had to get in the fray there. He responded with a question of his own. How many times do you use a towel post-shower till you throw it in the laundry? Dan
I
says
don't need body language from you.
30 times or so till it goes
Let
in.
him answer it.
Orlando, this is disgusting. Can you
No,
please
see,
set our friend?
No, you're giving him bias right now. Orlando,
Listen, I'm
don't
not
look
really,
at the cameras.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay.
Me and you.
After a shower, how many times do you use a towel before you're like, man, I got to put it in the laundry?
Orlando, don't miss this.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I got a lot of body, so normally
what
it's
he
one
said.
towel. It's one towel.
That's what he said.
It's one towel for me.
You got
man.
kids?
I do. I got a 2-year-old.
See, I got like 400 of them, so my
I
wife's
get
got
that.
enough laundry.
I get that too. I understand that. I get that
How long
perspective.
y'all
No
be drying
judgment.
yourselves for?
No judgment.
I'm 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You really,
I'm a
really
drown
let a
in
towel
bacteria 'cause I
get
got a lot of
all
kids.
musty.
Exactly.
That's a
That's
whole
his
month.
excuse.
Orlando, you get a new towel every shower?
Every single shower, man. Make sure of that.
That's because you're
Here,
still in the
Dan,
league.
here's a towel for you.
He
Here's a
got
towel.
absolutely. Yeah.
You
He
take
probably
that
got a deal.
He got he's still in the league.
By the way, this towel is now not getting washed for a whole month. Like this towel, Dan. I asked him earlier, like, y'all at home, you know this. Like, if
be
you
who
let
you
your
are.
towel be out there,
'Cause 30
it's gonna
times.
stink. Like,
No,
it
it
starts to
doesn't.
smell bad.
You're drying your clean body, freshly clean.
Hey,
But-
hey, no judgment over here, now.
Thank you, Orlando.
Man, you got it.
Orlando.
You ain't got to judge
Maybe
me.
we
That's
need
what
you
I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
Permanently in that seat.
You are a
Okay,
mess.
thanks to Orlando Brown Jr. for joining us
mess.
here. We wish you all the
Yeah.
best in your
Hey, man,
future and
go do your
where
thing.
you
Go
end
do your
up.
thing.
We
Keep
are
doing your
such
thing.
big
Keep
fans of
doing your
yours
thing, man.
and really can't wait to watch it.
Come back.
money.
I'm
He-
gonna sit over
he's
here
gonna
next
be
time.
on ESPN shows tomorrow. Get up, first
your
take,
money.
tune in, don't miss them.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.